In most competitive activities, we as people always like to ask the question, who is the best? And for speed cubing in particular, that question was always answered. It was always just Felix Zemdegs. But in 2023, there are so many extremely fast cubers nowadays that we haven't really had a definitive answer to this question in a long time. But what if I told you that there actually was? And it's a really interesting debate when you try to break it all down. But when you're looking at the fastest cubers out there, there are actually a lot of names to consider. So for the sake of this video, let's narrow it down to what I think is a pretty consensus top 3. That is Max Park, Yiheng Wang, and Tymon Koleshinsky. They all finished on the podium at the World Championship in that exact order. Yiheng obviously has the world record average at 448, and both Max and Tymon are tied at 486 for second. But where this debate really starts to get interesting is when we look at their individual solving styles. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to break down a solve from each of them from that World Championship final. It's going to be the third solve from their average of 5. So they all got the exact same scramble, and we're going to see what each one of them did and what that can tell us about who's the better cuber. And at the end of it all, I'm going to give you my exact answer to that question and who I think is the best cuber in the world in 2023. So first, I'm going to be breaking down Max's third solve from that average, which was a 569. The scramble is going to be the same for everybody just because it's the same solve, right? So Max actually chooses to do the solve on yellow cross. So instead of scrambling with white top and green front, I'm going to be scrambling with yellow top and green front. So the scramble is on screen now and in the description. So we can immediately notice our cross pieces are here, 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 and here. And what Max does is when he picks up the cube, he's actually going to start from this angle with orange on the front. So he holds it like this, right? And then he'd pick it up, and instead of doing an F prime for this first move he's going to do, he actually does a U prime, then he rotates, and then he's going to put this block in along with this cross edge. So what he does is a U and D prime at the same time, and then he does kind of a wide R prime here, and that connects all 3 of these pieces. You got this block here, and he's going to form an X cross with this. So what actually ends up happening is he does a D prime, and then he inserts this cross edge, of course, and then he's going to do a U prime and a D at the same time, and then he's going to insert this edge to finish off the X cross. And when he does that, that actually pairs up this pair right here. I'm not quite sure if he saw that exactly, but I don't think he did, because if he would have saw that, he probably would have done a wide U instead of just doing a D straight off. He kind of fumbles with it a little bit. He basically just ends up rotating and inserting this pair into the back. And then from here, it's pretty standard. I mean, he does this pair, the blue-orange, and then he rotates and does this pair, pretty standard here. And then for OLO, he does this soon, and he does it from the back like this. And what's interesting about this is he doesn't do double flicks, so this is just gonna look like that. So if you were to do it fast, it would actually just look like this, which is kind of funny. I can't really do that fast, but Max can do this at, like 20 plus TPS soon, so that's pretty insane. And then it's just a U and a Y perm and a U. So that was actually really interesting to take a look at right there. Max's solves are usually pretty simple for the most part, but he tried to do some like intricate X cross stuff, which I thought was pretty interesting. So yeah, on his F12 he makes really simple decisions, but what really sets him apart is his look ahead. Some may say that he doesn't have as much cube knowledge as someone like Tymon does, but I say that, well, his look ahead kind of makes up for that in a way, because he undoubtedly has some crazy vision for the cube and where pieces are going to go after he solves them. So now let's just move on to Yiheng's solve, which was a 461, and let's see what we can find out about his solving style.
31. Yiheng now. F12 so fast. OLO's done in about 3.8.
Alright, so this is going to be Yiheng's take on this scramble. Of course, same exact scramble as Max. He also chooses to do this solve on yellow cross, which is pretty interesting. So we can just scramble the same way that we did last time, which is with yellow on top instead of white. And it's the same scramble, which is in the description. Alright, so he's going to start the solve from a Y2 angle. And what he does here is he actually takes a pretty simplistic approach, I think, as far as X crosses go. And what he does is he inserts this edge first, right? So our cross pieces are in the same place, of course, as Max's were. And basically, he inserts the green edge first, next to this orange edge. And how he does that is just how you think he does it, right? Just D prime R, D, and that puts in this cross edge. And then from here, he has this kind of 2x1 block right here, and then he has the edge right here. So it's pretty straightforward as to how he's going to solve the rest of this. He just goes R prime, F prime, R prime, F. And that was a pretty simple X cross for him. Only like, 7 moves? And pretty efficient. So what he does next is he sees this pair, which is just the front left. And I don't know if he saw that this pair would be solved back here. Probably not. but what he does is he just brings it to the back, splits it up, puts it in, and then he has this solved pair. And instead of just inserting it like this, he sees that this is like that, and that is very bad. Somebody quote me on that. That was amazing. So what he does is he basically does R, U2, R prime to insert this pair. And then for this next pair, he just has this, which he just solves it the most standard way. And then it's just OLL and PLL, which he does a weird alg here, but I don't know. I'll just use the, whatever that alg is, whatever you want to call that one. So Yiheng, basically what he did was he made an X cross, and then he had some pretty simple pairs from there on out, and then it was just blazing TPS at the end. So yeah, that's pretty much a good example of what Yiheng solves are going to look like. So this was a frighteningly good solve for Yiheng for a couple of reasons. First of all, he planned that X cross, and he also had a really easy second pair, and then his third pair was already made for him. But for Yiheng, it more so comes down to how he uses his inspection time and his pair choice, which I think is really, really interesting concept. I wouldn't say that his look ahead is on par with Max's right now. That's just my opinion, but he's Yiheng Wang, who knows? It probably is. But I definitely think that he's more efficient, and he probably just turns faster on his OLL and PLL in general. So on this solve, he did do 12 TPS, which is honestly pretty average for him at this point. Pretty depressing to say that, but yeah, that's a true fact. So now let's move on to Tymon and see what his take on this scramble was. So it's going to be the exact same scramble, and funnily enough, he also chooses yellow cross. So whatever that will tell you, you can take that however you want, but it's pretty interesting to see that they all chose the same exact cross color for this solve. So it's just the same scramble, and I'm going to scramble with yellow top and green front again. Alright, so he also starts this solve from a Y2 angle, but he's actually going to go for a double X cross here. And this solve it's pretty confusing, let's just say that. To the average mind, you're going to have no idea what's going on, basically. He does a pseudo X cross on this one. Basically a pseudo double X cross, to be exact, and it's pretty insane. So what he does is he starts off with a U and D prime at the same time, and that's to make way for this edge to come down here. And also this edge will go in front and next to this edge at the end. So you'll see what's happening right here. So what he does is he does an R to put in the edge, but he goes like this, and that just solves the cross, and you have the corner in now. I don't know how he possibly even sees what he does next, but yeah, so this is going to make you lose faith in ever being good at cubing. What he does is he does a YD, and then he inserts this pseudo pair into the back, and then the next thing that he does is he rotates, and he inserts this edge, and then he does a wide U, and he has this pair. Yeah, so he basically just did a cross +3 in inspection, and funnily enough, he actually has this whole entire block solved. So what I would have done is I would have switched to green cross, and gotten like an 11-second solve. So instead, what Tymon does is somebody who's actually smart is he just inserted the pair like normal, and then he did this pair like normal, like this, and then no crazy ZBLL stuff on this solve because he was just going so fast. I mean, there's really no point to try to orient edges on that last pair. So what he does instead is just OLL and then PLL, which is just the G perm. So yeah, your brain probably just exploded with that one, but that's the Tymon experience right there. That was an insane solve. I really don't know how you even process all of that in inspection, but he did, and maybe he even planned that third pair as well. Who knows? Wow, just wow. Like, reconstructing Tymon solves is always, you get enlightened by them. Like, you learn things that you never thought you would learn about a Rubik's Cube, and then you never use those things in your solves because, like, your brain is just too small to even comprehend what they are or how they are used in the first place. I mean, it was literally a pseudo double X cross into a free F12 pair. That's basically 3 pairs. I don't know if he saw the third one, but if he did, like, I don't even know what to say at this point. So he said himself that his TPS isn't naturally as good, so he tends to focus on efficiency more. And I have to say, he's probably, if we're going to look at all 3 skill sets, right, like TPS, efficiency, and look ahead, I'd say that he's the best at what he does comparatively to everybody else. Like, it's even better than Max Park's look ahead is for him. So he did inspect all the way to that. He got the double X cross, of course, and then the free pair. And then he just ended up doing regular OLO and PLO, which you see sometimes from him if, like, he's going so fast in the F12, he doesn't really need to orient edges, right? So the last layer on that solve was pretty normal. So that leaves us with the question of the day. Who out of these three is actually the fastest? So it goes without saying that as far as look ahead goes, Max is probably the best. As far as efficiency goes, it's obviously Tymon. But I feel like Yiheng is kind of a combination of the two. So he should be faster by default, right? Well, yes, but also no. Because there's this thing in cubing called nerves. I'm sure we've all felt it, whether you're giving a public speech or you're doing anything, right? You get nervous sometimes. You got nervous before a test or something. You don't want to do badly, and that ends up getting you nervous, right? So if we look at these situations like the World Championship final where everything rests on literally 5 solves, sometimes you might mess up, right? Because you have so much pressure to solve something so quickly. And then we combine it with the fact that cubing isn't like anything else where you can just use your adrenaline to fuel you, right? You can't use your adrenaline in cubing to help you perform better. Instead, you have to learn to control those nerves because the nerves can only be bad for you in cubing. There's really nothing like helpful about the nerves. You just have to learn how to control them in the high pressure situations where they come up, and then you just have to solve well out of that, which is a very, very difficult thing to do. So if we factor this in, then what is the final verdict? Well, at the World Championship, Max did in fact win, but we have to examine this a little bit further to really make a decision. So Max is actually extremely consistent as far as his solves have gone for 3x3 this year. I think he has the lowest standard deviation, which means that his solves don't really vary in time that often. And in this average, that was especially true. He didn't get a single 6, it was all 5s and 4s, right? Whereas for Tymon and Yiheng, they both started and ended with a 6, but all the solves in the middle were basically 4s, right? Yiheng got a low 5 in there, Tymon got like a 5 flat that I reconstructed just now. It goes without saying that all of them were probably pretty nervous for this. At that point, it just comes down to who has more experience in these situations. I mean, Yiheng's only 10, so what can you really expect out of him in these situations when he hasn't been in them before, right? This is his first like major championship of being as good as he is. So I think even for that standard, he surpassed his expectations. Like, you really have to weigh in what nerves are going to do to you when you're in that situation and you're a 10-year-old. And you haven't been in that situation before, for him to still get 2 4s, like 2 really, really good solves, and a low 5 was just ridiculous. Like, he very well could have gotten a 6 average. Like, things could have fallen apart on every solve, instead of just on that last solve and the first solve. And then Tymon literally had a BPA of, what was it, like 474 or something like that? Like, it would have been a world record too, in the World Championship final. I don't even know how that's possible, but he almost did it, except for the fact that an NB perm held him back from all of that. On his last solve, he did just like a mediocre OLL into an NB perm, which was really, really unfortunate. I think if he got a better PLL, he genuinely would have won the World Championship. Like, it just came down to a 1/10 of a second between the averages. In the case of Yiheng and Max, it was literally a 100th of a second. So this is all to say that nerves are genuinely a huge factor in this debate when cubing is a competitive thing. So what I'll say is that I think that Yiheng is the best when nerves aren't involved at all. Like, if he was in a regular everyday competition, right, and he was going against Tymon in a round, I think that he would beat him like 7 or 8 times out of 10. He's just that good. Like, he averages like 5.3 in comp at this point. And he's pretty far above everybody else. I think he has like 11 sub 5 averages. It's just ridiculous. So I think that's kind of the elephant in the room, that Yiheng is that good at cubing, and we just have to start recognizing that. But the thing is, whenever you add in nerves, I think that Tymon and Max can be better than him. I think it genuinely just comes down to who's solving better that day and who can control their nerves, because Yiheng is like naturally going to be faster than them. But Tymon has so much more experience and he's so good with dealing with nerves that honestly, he can sometimes just get his times that he gets at home in competition. So then it comes down to, between Tymon and Max, who do I think is faster in that exact situation? And that's like the hardest question ever. I genuinely couldn't answer that. But as far as who is the fastest cuber just on base level, I think that it's Yiheng. And it's a lot farther apart than you think it is. But I think that with nerves, Tymon can very well be faster than him, and so can Max. But yeah, it was just really cool to see all of their different takes on that exact same scramble, and how they chose to do that in real time in a very high pressure situation. I think I learned a lot today about all 3 of them and how they solve. So if you enjoyed the video, you can subscribe. If you didn't, don't. I'm not going to hold that against you. Here's the daily reminder. And yeah, like, comment, share, do whatever you want to do, all that good stuff. And yeah, that's about it. See ya.